ever set a New Year's resolution that felt perfect? Like this was finally going to be the year that you crushed it, only to watch it fall apart by February?
Yeah, I've been there actually. You set a goal that you get fired up about. You maybe hit the gym, you plan to save money, and then life hits you like a ton of bricks. And suddenly those big dreams become a distant reality.
But what if this year could be different? What if you could actually stick to your resolutions? Not by trying harder, but by setting them the right way.
Well, thankfully, that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. And I'm ecstatic because if anybody needs it, I need it. Because I'm only getting older, and so are you. So it's time to set these SMART goals and really crush this new year.
And more importantly, we'll share the strategies to keep you on track all year long, no matter what life throws at you. By the end of this podcast, you'll have all of the tools you need to make 2025 the year that you follow through on your goals.
This is the Fi Guys. Let's ring in the new year.
So tomorrow is New Year's Eve. And with that, we end 2024. Can you believe that we're at 2025 already? Like, I feel like I just blinked and all of a sudden it went from January 1st and now here we are, December 30th. If you're listening to the podcast on the day it releases, if not, whenever you listen to it, it's almost New Year's. This is crazy.
Yeah. Happy New Year. If you're probably listening to this after, but Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025. We are still in 2024. We're right at the brink, right at the cusp of crossing over, and it's going to be an exciting year, hopefully even more exciting than last year. Last year was a good year, though. Some good, some bad. That's the mark of a good year, right? You don't want all good or all bad. What do you think?
I mean, ideally it's all good, but unfortunately you do grow most from the bad. So you need a little bit of mix of both. But in today's podcast, what I really want to talk about is I think this is the time of the year where everyone starts to set resolutions, right? This is what 2025 is going to be. 2025 is going to be the best year ever. And I remember saying that in 2024 and 2023 and 2022 and 2021 and so on and so forth infinitely. So I thought today in our podcast, rather than working on, let's figure out what the best resolution is, let's do all this. What if we start, instead of just saying, this is my resolution, what if we set good resolutions, SMART resolutions, as it were? And then more importantly, we talk about ways to stick to our resolutions when inevitably life comes and kicks us in the butt.
Yeah, and life will always come and kick us in the butt. That's why you got to go to the gym and build up your butt muscles. It all makes sense now. A full circle moment. Thank you for that, Chris. Much appreciated. Yeah, so this year will be better than last year. That is our hope. That is our goal, right? Like Chris said, we hope that every year. But every year, does it come true? I'll let you decide that for your own life. Because we've all set New Year's resolutions, New Year's goals. And you know how it is. I don't have to explain to you what life is. As a viewer, as a person living in life, trying to improve, we always wait till the end of the year, wait till the start of the year to get better, right? Now, I am a little hypocritical on what I'm about to say, but I don't think you should ever wait to the beginning of the year to start a new goal. You should start today. Ironically, it is December 30th. So ironically, it's like the day before New Year's, so it doesn't really matter as much, but I believe there is no better time to plant a tree than today.
Yes, I would agree with that. I mean, that old saying of the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago, but we don't have access to 10 years ago. We have access to right now. So let's get it done. And when I think about most people setting resolutions, I don't think it's that they set a resolution. That was the issue. I think it's that they set the wrong resolution. And what I'd like to go into today, first in our first segment, is setting SMART resolutions. And I don't just mean SMART as if it's an intelligent resolution. SMART is actually an acronym here. And that acronym stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's go ahead and go into some examples of what a SMART goal might be for 2025. What do most people say during 2025? My resolution this year is I want to save more money. I want to be healthier. Well, if we go ahead and we break that down, let's go ahead and just bring it down to specific. I want to save more money. Dominic, is that specific in any way, shape, or form?
It's very generalized, very generalized.
Perfect. So what if we went ahead and we changed that from rather being, I want to save more money, I want to make more money, I want this, I want that, to I want to save $5,000 in my emergency fund by the end of 2025. Or I want to save $20,000 in my IR, in my 401k by 2025. And I'm going to even break it down a little bit further. And by saying by January, I want to have $1,000. By February, $3,000. And I want to scale this up a little bit. We are getting a little bit ahead of ourselves, but does that seem far more specific than I just want generally to be better?
So, why do you think people set the generalized goal? Is it maybe a fear of like, what if they hit it, or what if they don't hit it, or what do you? Because I know you're a big psychology guy. You're all about the deep mind. What's kind of like the idea behind that?
I'd have to put myself into the eye of the viewer, but I can't do that. So what I'll do is I'll put myself into my own brain, which I have access to pretty quickly. And I would say if it was me and I was afraid that I might fail, I might set a goal that is kind of like, I want to save more money. And therefore, if I saved a lot of money, I succeeded. But even if I saved a little bit of money, I succeeded. And you kind of give yourself an out before you even start. I want to get healthier. But then when you do that, it has a counter effect in that, yes, you might get a little bit better, but then also if you start to fail at it, which inevitably we all will, you get to give yourself a quick out because your brain is just doing one thing. It's trying to keep you alive. It's trying to protect you from yourself. And when things start to get tough, your brain might just say, let's just shut this down. And I think that's where we've all been, where we have this New Year's resolution. You and I go to the gym, Dominic, pretty often. And we all know what it's like I call them resolutioners. January 1 through January 7th, I usually don't go to the gym. I work out at home because I know that people are going to go hard that first week. And you know that by the end of that week, they're not going to continue to do it. And I don't think it's because the resolution was bad. Trying to get healthier is bad. That's a good thing. I think that the resolution was fundamentally flawed in that it wasn't smart to begin with. It wasn't specific. And there's more than just that. It also wasn't measurable. How you track your progress is incredibly important because we need to use sometimes tools, apps, or different methods in order to figure out how we're tracking our progress because most progress is extremely slow. If you're trying to save your way to $20,000, depending on your income, obviously, that could be a whole year thing. If you're trying to lose 20 pounds and trying to do it healthy, that can be a whole year thing. We've talked a lot about making sure that when you set up a new habit, a new goal, a new resolution, that it's something that's sustainable. In the next 30 days, could I lose 30 pounds if I decided I'm not going to eat anymore and just drink like a sip of water every day? Yeah,
Mhm.
by the end of the 30 days, I'll have lost 30 pounds. I'll also be dehydrated and probably on the brink of death. And the moment I start eating again, I'm going to gain all that back and some. And I think that's what most people do. And the reason we're talking about this today is because I want us to avoid that in 2025 to really set us up for the best way that we can so that moving forward, we can always look back on this year and say, like, that's when things actually changed for me. That's when I got it together.
You're so spot on with that. You're so spot on. I hope the viewers really took in what you said there, because that is exactly what I was thinking. But the way you said it, I loved it, right? It's a crutch. It's a crutch for failure and success. It's so true. So number one, S for SMART goals. Be specific. Have a specific goal. Maybe you have a goal in mind. Also, I would maybe write it down, listener. Make sure to go write it down somewhere. Maybe if it's your journal, maybe it's in your notes app, maybe it's a notepad, right? Probably better. Maybe I just recently got a whiteboard. If you can see it behind me, I got a whiteboard up on my wall, right? I'm introducing that into my world for this new year. Okay? So make sure it's written down. Make sure it's written down somewhere where you see it often.
You know, you just brought up an amazing point that I really want to touch on before. So we talked about specific, we talked about measurable. We'll go on to A, R, and T in a second. But I used to have a goal to be financially independent by the time I was 40. And I had an index card, or not an index card, it was a little card and it was laminated. And I had that on my computer. You guys can't see it, but what I'm looking at is 3 monitors. On my third monitor on the far right corner, I had that. Every day that I went into my office, I saw this laminated thing. My goal was to be retired by the age of 40 years old, financially independent by the age of 40 years old. And I looked at that every single day I went to work. Any day I looked to the right of my screen, I would see that. And it wasn't just written down on a text in my phone. It was written down in a note. It was handwritten. Therefore, when my brain looked at that, that's my handwriting. That's me. That's past me saying this is what I want to do. So my recommendation is write it down with your own handwriting, not in the notes in your phone. Don't just put it on a goal. write it down on a whiteboard, write it down on the wall. Don't destroy your wall. Write it down somewhere that's nice.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like, don't
yeah.
take out a Sharpie and like start writing on the wall. You're gonna be you're gonna get, yeah, you're gonna end up in an asylum. But like,
Yeah.
write it down in a place that you're gonna see every day. Ideally, before you go to bed, when you wake up, those kinds of things. Go ahead, Dominic.
You said something that triggered me, right? That in a good way, not in a bad way. I'm not gonna fight, right? I'll lose that fight. But what I was thinking was, you said you had it on your desk, laminated, you saw it every day, right? I love that. One, maybe even a little upgrade to it is say I'm unhealthy and I have a daughter, right? This is a big selling point for doctors, right? So say I'm an unhealthy man, I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and the doctor says, hey, you got to change your ways. Otherwise, you're not going to live very long, right? And the patient goes, I'm not going to really do it. I'll try, but then they fail, right? Another doctor will come in, different doctor, different situation, right? And he goes, do you want to be at your daughter's wedding? Do you want another man walking her down the aisle? And the patient who's unhealthy, based on his habits, like, what are you talking about? What's on this piece of paper? What's going on? Like, am I gonna die? And you can see the differences, right? The reason I say this in regards to Chris's note card is, for me, I'm a very visual person. Chris is the same way, right? I need a strong why if I'm to accomplish a goal as big as financially independent by 40. And one of the things that I would do is I would put a picture of, maybe like you have a wife, I'd put a picture of maybe you two together. So to remind yourself, like, wow, this is what I'm fighting for. And it's not just for me, but making it bigger than me. Because truthfully, speaking from experience, we have no problem letting ourselves down, but it's much harder disappointing someone that relies on you, who loves you, right? Like a wife or a daughter or a son or spouse, So I love that. I think that might be the gem of the week right there, is having your why and your SMART goal written down, laminated with something that emotionally triggers you, right? Because your emotions can dictate whether or not you'll do it and how efficiently you'll do it. It's unbelievable. So I don't know how you guys are gonna do it, but figure it out and get that done. Because that's literally, I'm leaving today's podcast and I'm gonna go do that. That motivated me so much. I love that so much. So I hate to interrupt the podcast, taking a few minutes out of the pod, but please, let's get back to our SMART goals breakdown. We talked about specific, we talked about measurable. The next one.
Before we get to A, I'm gonna skip A for right now and move to R because of what you just said.
Okay.
So we'll talk about A in a second. So we went SMR. R stands for relevant. And I think most people, when they hear the word relevant, they go, okay, like, it's relevant, like I want it. But just to what you said, I take relevant to be a very different thing. I think of relevance as your why. And I want to align my goal, my resolution, with my values and my life priorities. And just like you said there, that when you write down your goal, is it specific, is it measurable, is it time bound, is all these things, is it relevant? Relevant to me is the most important thing, because the relevance is the emotional hook. It is the reason that you're doing the thing. Just like you talked about the doctor there. If I just want to get healthy for whatever reason, because I just want to be healthy, I want to have a six pack, I want women to like me, I don't know, whatever the reason is. That's kind of fickle. But if my reason is relevant in that it's for another person, it's to be there for my daughter's wedding, it's to be there in 30 years so that my wife doesn't have to spend her retirement alone. These are the kinds of things that are far more important. And that's where relevant, our R in our SMART goal, is so much more important than just like, is it relevant? Yeah, sure, it's relevant. Like, yeah, I want to get healthier, it's relevant. But let's take it another level deeper and say, what is the true why? Not just consciously, but subconsciously. What are the things we want to do? We want to survive, and we want to thrive. All human beings, these are our goals in life, to survive and to thrive. How do we do that with these goals? How do our goals, our resolutions that we're trying to set here, get us to that better life? Not just surviving, but taking it on to the next level of thriving.
I love that. I love that. I got nothing else to say on that.
That's fine. Let's go ahead and move back now. So we'll go back to the A where we should have gone before. I just wanted to go right around that. So the A stands for achievable. And I think that this is really important, that we set something that is ambitious, and realistic. And I don't want to use the word but there. I think a lot of people, they say, I want to be ambitious, but realistic. And we in America, we use this word but incorrectly. But is a negator word. But negates whatever was in front of the but. So if I say I wanted to be ambitious, but realistic, then what I'm really saying is I want to be realistic.
Mm-hmm.
And if you set a realistic goal that is achievable, like, hey, I want to save $5 this year, it's realistic. It's achievable. Sure. Yeah. It's all these things. But if you save $5 this year, would you really feel proud of yourself? I always say you have to know your limits and you want to shoot for the stars because even if you miss, or you want to shoot for the moon because even if you miss, you'll be amongst the stars. Floating in a lifeless vacuum in space.
I love the added. That was pretty good. That was pretty good. I can't listen. The cheesy jokes. I love the cheesy jokes. Feed them all my way. I'll eat them up all day long. I agree. It's so sad to hear a but at the end of the station, at the end of the sentence. You know, it's like, Chris, I love you, but you happen to be handsomer than me, so I don't know. I don't know. You got a better mustache, you know. So I agree. So you're saying set your goals high, but also attainable. That's kind of what you're saying.
Right? And also attainable.
See, I got to rewire my brain. Got to rewire it. Set them high and attainable. I like that. I think, could you give us an example of that in your own life to kind of help with us? Because some people have the tendency to play small. They're not used to playing big. And I think a lot of people need to start playing a little bit bigger, get the life that they dreamt of. Do you have any examples of that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to the example I gave earlier. So between you and I, Dominic, between our listener, I don't set New Year's resolutions. I've never been a big person on it. And the reason for that is I don't fundamentally believe that I have to wait until a random date to begin to try to become a better person. I'd rather just do that every single day. Mm-hmm. I don't want to wait till I know it's easier for people. I get it. I understand psychologically why we rather wait till Monday to start the new habit. Why we rather wait till the first, wait till February, wait till whatever day. But I have tried to supersede that by just not having that. So to go back to something achievable was my meta goal, my big goal, my big, hairy, audacious goal was to be financially independent by the age of 40. And for somebody who was 22 years old at the time, 23 years old at the time, working at a job that he hated 50 hours a week and didn't see a way out, for me, being retired in 17 years at that time was crazy. Because I had never seen that, had never been modeled for me in any way, shape, or form. I didn't know that there was a way of doing it. I had no idea. And I'm glad to say that I was able to achieve that 7 years sooner than I expected. So for me at the time, it was ambitious. And I thought that it was realistic simultaneously. I knew it was going to be hard. But by setting that hard goal, your brain opens up to new possibilities that you didn't even see before. And, that's the hard thing about growing up and for people that grow up poor. Growing up poor isn't just a wealth problem. It's a mindset problem. And sometimes being exposed, and even the exposure could come from inside and saying like, I can achieve this, I can have this, is all that you need to start finding ways to actually achieve that thing. This has come from personal experience of what I've experienced in my life.
Do you think it was more of a mindset problem than a financial problem?
Yes.
Interesting. Do you feel like that's very controversial as well?
Yes. Yeah. And I know why. And because I've been there too. I've been there with, hey, it's not that you don't have money that's a problem. It's that you don't have the mindset to want to go and make money. You don't have the mindset to pull yourself out of this. And I would say to someone like that, hey, F you. You don't know what I'm going through. My life's harder than yours, blah, 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 blah. I've been there. I get it. Everything is correct simultaneously. And I feel like I've been saying this word simultaneously so much more often. And I think maybe to our listeners, because I know to myself it gets annoying, but it is true that we live in a society that never taught us about money, that is set up to saddle us with debt. Especially for us, we target the millennial generation, 25 to 36, our age demographic. We're the group of people that we're told if you go to college, if you put yourself 6 figures in debt, if you sacrifice 4 years of your life, when you get out of it, you're going to have a job waiting for you that's going to make all of that worth it. And we went to school for 4 years. We put ourselves $50,000, $60,000 in debt, and we got out to find a job that was $40,000 when our friends that didn't do that were already working that job. And now they're our managers. The ones that didn't go to college, they're our managers now. And now we're effed. And I understand why it's upsetting. And we are the luckiest generation in that we have all of the information to change that at our fingertips. So yes, we were screwed over in what we were told. And we have to take it upon ourselves to fix the situation, because we all, if you're listening to this podcast right now, you are in the top 1% of all people in human history. You have the ability to pull out your phone and look up any information. You know, I think of like Harry Potter. Remember in Harry Potter when they're trying to figure out like, hey, what is the Sorcerer's Stone? And they have to go and they have to read a bunch of books. And like it takes Hermione a whole year to realize that, oh, hey, the Philosopher's Stone was made up by this guy and all this stuff inside the restricted section.
Yeah.
We don't have that. You just Google shit. You Google it, ChatGPT it, and you have it right at your fingertips immediately. That is crazy. But it takes it upon you to have to go out there and actually find that.
It's so ironic because if you went back in the day, if you went back hundreds of years and you pulled out your phone and you just, yeah, tomorrow it'll rain. Yeah, tomorrow there'll be a solar eclipse. You know, XYZ information, right? They'd say that you're a witch. And in a movie where they're wizards, they have to do it the long way. They can't use it. It's just funny to me. But I think you're 100% right. We're both enthralled by technology and its power, yet we never use it to its fullest potential. And maybe my information is off base. Maybe there's more people getting after it than there were 100 years ago. Maybe there's less people. Because sometimes the negativity speaks through louder than the positivity. An evolved person usually doesn't sit at the top of a mountaintop and say that I'm evolved and I've gone so far. So maybe it's being used more than we think, but maybe not. But I know all of us can use it more efficiently and delete TikTok and start using it for good. Not necessarily saying that we're using it for bad, but if you have a purpose in life, why have anything in your arsenal that's going to take you away from that purpose?
Yeah. Are the things you're doing serving the person you want to be? And sometimes, and it's hard. It's all hard. I'm not going to say that it's easy. It's all hard. And that hardness, that difficulty is what is going to make you the person that you want to become. So we talked about specific, we talked about measurable, we talked about achievable, we talked about relevant. The final one is time bound. And that means that we're setting deadlines to stay on track. And that doesn't just mean that, hey, I want to save more money this year. I want to save $5,000 by the end of December 2025. What I would say is when you're setting those time bounds, yes, it is time bound by the year, maybe. But we want to go ahead and break that down into smaller groups. Because if you go ahead and say, I want to save $20,000 in my 401k in 2025, until you hit that goal of $20,000, you are a failure in your brain. That's how your brain's going to work. I am failing until I actually hit the goal. So we need to break this down and make this time boundness. Yes, it's 2025, but we need to break it down into chunks and give ourselves small goals that we can achieve and continue to try to make so that we feel like we're winning every step of the way and we can actually see that progress. You know, there are times where I'm in jujitsu and we'll do these like they're called grind matches where you go and you go 4 minutes with one person and then another 4 minutes with another person, another 4 minutes with another person. And those people are fresh and you're the person who's just getting destroyed over and over and over again. So you go for 20 minutes of you fighting a new fresh partner every 4 minutes. And the first 4 minutes are fun, maybe. The next 16 is you're just trying to hold on. And rather than focusing on, I need to make it for the next 20 minutes, there are times where I need to just break it down to, I need to make it through the next 10 seconds. Once I make it through 10 seconds, I need to make it through okay, there's a win. I made it through 10 seconds. I need to make it through another 10 seconds. And if we break that goal down smaller and smaller and smaller into things that are actually achievable, anyone can do something for 10 seconds. Anyone can do something awful for 10 seconds. And you might realize that after that 10 seconds, maybe you want to quit. Maybe you do. But maybe you can also say that, hey, I see progress. And now look, I'm 10 seconds closer to that 20 minutes. This is going to be tough, but I've already done this far. And maybe I can keep on going. And if I can't keep on going after that 10 seconds, all I have to do is tap and I can stop it. And I'll get up, I'll shake my partner's hand, and I'll move forward. And I could reset my goals. I could do so many other things. It doesn't mean that I'm a failure. It means that I learned something new about myself.
Jocko has this quote that kind of echoes in my mind. It says, it's okay to quit, but don't quit today, quit tomorrow. And I always love that because the procrastinator in me and all of us, it's just like a freshly fitted shirt. It fits me so well, right? I never ever like to quit. I am, it might be one of my superpowers that I have a hard time quitting. And it's probably a good thing that I don't drink alcohol because I don't know what that would be like. But that's just kind of a joke, kind of not a joke. But if you're going to quit, don't quit today. Quit tomorrow. And just know that you can make it one more day. You can make it one more hour. You can make it one more minute. Chris, you got something?
Yeah. I love Jocko, as you know. I've
Yeah.
listened to his podcast, read all of his books.
Yeah.
We're big Jocko fans.
Yeah.
One thing that I've taken from Jocko that is very similar to what you just said is if you need a break, you get your break tomorrow. So there are times where like, I don't want to cold plunge. I don't want to go jujitsu. I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to wake up at 4 a.m. All these things, they all suck, man. It all sucks. None of it's fun. I mean, afterwards it's fun, but during it sucks. Jiu-jitsu's fun during it, but it sucks simultaneously. And what I've learned from Jocko is, hey, I don't want to cold plunge today. Like maybe I'm feeling a little sick. I don't know. I should avoid it. And I listen to Jocko, and he's in my head. There's a little Jocko in here that says, okay, if tonight you say that you don't want to do it tomorrow, then that's okay. But right now you're going to get in that water. You're going to suffer for 4.5 minutes. And then tomorrow, if you need a break and you tell yourself tonight that you need a break and tomorrow morning that you need a break, then you get it. But you need to go through it today. And you need to make sure that all of those people, every part of yourself, the past self, the present self, and the future self, all agree that we don't want to do it. Not just the present self saying, I don't want to do it. Because we have all of these many selves, right? There's the past self who says like, or the narrative self, the person that this is who I am. This is the things I do. Then there's the future self, that this is the person I will become. But then there's the me right now, the present self that actually has to go through it, that actually has to pick up the phone and make the phone call, that actually has to get in the water, that actually has to pick up that weight at the gym. So you want to make sure that all these three people agree because they're all you. And in order for you to become the person you want to be, you need to have the narrative. The past self needs to know that I can achieve it. And the present self needs to actually do it.
Wow. So you need to be aligned with your past, present, and future. And that's such an easy thing to say.
Yes.
It's so easy to say. And it's like probably the most difficult thing to do. Especially when you're doing something as difficult as cold plunging, right? Or any other impossible task.
I mean, even saving money, like pursuing financial independence is aligning these three people. Because past you or narrative you, past you is the one who says, I want to be financially independent. This is how I'm going to get it. Future you is the one who has achieved it and because of all the hard work. But you today is the one who has to save money. You today is the one who has to tell your friend, oh, I can't go out to the movies today. I can't go out to dinner. I'm trying to save money. And that's really hard because you today wants to exist today. Your brain wants you to thrive today. Wants your survival today. But you know in your heart of hearts that you don't want to also wake up tomorrow being like, damn it, I did it again. Well, I don't want that to happen again for another year, another 2025 goals of you being here in February and saying, damn it, it happened again. I'm a failure again.
So to avoid that, we've got to set smart goals. To avoid not being a failure, we got to set smart goals. To avoid that negative demon that haunts us at night when we're trying to go to bed and you didn't do this, you didn't do that. We got to set smart goals. That's a great start.
That's the start.
That's the start. Yeah.
That's the start. So I want to tie in some SMART goals just to give people who are pursuing financial independence or entrepreneurial growth, just so they can have some ideas of what a SMART goal might look like. So I know that we have a lot of people that listen to the podcast that are entrepreneurs, and they're just like us. And hey, you're my family, and we love you guys. So thank you. Rather than just having, hey, I want this to be the best year for my business ever. What if we did something more like, I want to increase my business revenue by 20% by improving my marketing strategies by June? Does that sound pretty specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound? I don't know about achievable. I don't know your business, but for my for my business, I would say that's achievable. Does that sound like those are hitting those SMART goals to you, Dominic?
100%. 100%. That is definitely what a great SMART goal looks like.
And now let's go ahead and look at it. So maybe you're not an entrepreneur. Maybe you're just someone who listens because you were pursuing financial independence. You're here with us because you want to become better in many ways, shape, and forms. And maybe you have aspirations to one day be an entrepreneur, to own your own business, to do these things. I'm going to tell you it's fun. It's hard and it's fun, but it's the most growth you're going to get. So for that person who's pursuing financial independence, rather than I want to save money this year, I want to be better financially this year. What if we set a goal more like I want to pay off $2,000 in credit card debt by December by setting aside $200 a month. And with the extra $200, I'll be able to set myself up. The extra $400 I'm going to make since I'm saving $200 for 12 months, I'm going to be able to set myself up for a great 2026. I don't know what your income is. I don't know anything about you. But I can say that you can find somewhere to cut to save a little bit of money.
Yeah, there's always more you can cut off the bone. You can always cut more fat off the bone. Yep. And as we've hopefully done in our year-end review, you can realize where you spent too much money and maybe invested too little money. So I hope that using that SMART goal example and the SMART goal system, you can actually use it to your advantage and not repeat the mistakes of last year.
Yeah. I'd like to move on to segment number 2. And I think this is what we talked about was really important. That's the start. But this is the real meat and potatoes. This is the important stuff. This is where, even if I set the best SMART goal in the world, if I don't have a strategy to stick to my resolution, the moment things get tough, most people are going to quit. And I wish it wasn't like that. I wish I wasn't like that, but I am. Yeah, I want to quit a lot of the time. So I want to give you some strategies that I haven't built up, but that people have taught me over the years that really work for me, and some other ones that I maybe don't use, but that we can talk about. And the first one is that we need to build habits, not just goals. Having the goal to lose 20 pounds over the years, having the goal to save $2,000 or to pay off debt, that's all well and good. The goal is the big thing. But the thing we really need to focus on is the small daily actions that get us to the big thing. That's what's actually important. So many people say, oh yeah, one day I'm going to be financially independent. One day I'm going to be able to retire. But they're not taking the daily small actions to achieve that. And they're just operating off of hope. I don't know, maybe I'll win the lottery. Maybe, hope, it'll work out. It'll work out. We're not going to talk about it because it's going to work out. And if we talk about it, it might not work out. Is that the strategy that you want to have for your life? It's your life. You can choose to have what you're doing currently, or you can choose to put it into a daily action, something that you can do. So I want you to start to figure out what habits can we stack. And this comes from Atomic Habits by James Clear. How can we start pairing a new habit with an existing habit that's going to get us to the way that we want to go? So maybe if I want to be more fit, every day that I brush my teeth, if I already brushed my teeth, hopefully you brush your teeth for 2 minutes a day. While I'm doing that, can I knock out 20 squats? Can I walk around and clean up my house? Can I look on my phone to check my investments or my bank? Maybe not investments. Can I look and and kind of do a recollection of what happened the day before in my spending accounts?
Mm-hmm.
How can I tie a new behavior to something that already exists within me? Because it's going to make it a lot easier to you to connect a habit, than to create a new habit out of thin air and just bring it into your life.
Could you tell us a little bit how to kind of break an old habit as well, since you're on the topic of habit stacking?
Breaking habits is extremely difficult. In order to break a habit, or the best way that I know to break a habit is to replace the habit. So if you're a smoker, just quitting cold cold turkey. Can it be done? Yes, of course, but it takes a lot of will, a lot of grit. The better thing to do is to find a new habit to replace it with. So that's why you'll find people that addiction never goes away. You just transmuted it. And it's kind of like the thought of physics, right? In physics, though we know about matter is that matter can't be destroyed. It can only be changed. It is alchemy.
Mhm.
And just like addiction, people that were alcoholics, maybe you'll see alcoholics will come out of that and they'll get really into CrossFit. They'll get really into the gym. They'll get really into something. And they replaced one addiction with another addiction. And luckily it's a healthier addiction. It's a better addiction, but an addiction nonetheless.
Mhm.
But an addiction that is socially acceptable.
Okay. So it's a matter of just replacing it with something else. If you're a smoker, maybe try chewing gum. Something like that.
Yeah. If you bite, there's that. And then there's also the therapy aspect of it, which, that's where I'm not a therapist. I'm a financial coach. I have a therapy background, but I'm not a therapist anymore. So I'm not going to call myself that.
Mhm.
I never was a therapist. I just have the degree. I never did it though. That's where it's going back and revisiting why you have this thing. What is this action fulfilling for you? And that's a much larger concept than what this podcast can do. If you want to go into things like that, you need to you need to go to therapy, or you need to become part of like my coaching program. But I'm not here to sell that.
Yeah.
I do that in different places. But yeah, it's very difficult to extinguish a habit that is ingrained.
Okay. So going back to point number one, right? Building habits, not just goals, right? Because the habits will get you to the goal if you have the right habits, right? If my goal is to be to I'll give you something I'm working on in the new year, right? Is doing like wholesaling real estate, right? If my goal is to maybe sell 10 contracts this year or 10 contracts in the first couple months, right? Now it's got to be specific. What do you want to do, right? For me, I'm not a big fan of yearly goals. I like goals. If I do have a yearly goal, I break it down into quarters, right? So maybe in the first quarter, I want to sell 10 contracts, right? So reverse engineering that, what would be the habit to get us to that goal? Now, I feel like habit gets a bad rap, right? In regards to, well, I have to do it every day. I have to do it every day. It's like, okay, let's cut ourselves some slack first. There's 7 days in a week, right? If my goal is to make more calls to reach out to more people, I don't have to make calls every single day, right? Because maybe I work 10 hours one day and I've got to go babysit and I've got to XYZ, I got this and I've got a whole week. And this is a new concept for me that I heard from Jesse Itzler, one of my favorite authors, an entrepreneur I look up to. Um, he has this thing, and mine's not back there right now, but it's coming in the mail. It's called a big ass calendar. And that's the brand. He sells these giant calendars where you can plan your entire year on one sheet. And I love that concept, right? So for me to get to my goal, I have to hit X amount of calls per week. Maybe not per day, but maybe per week. So if I mess up on Monday, oh, well, on Tuesday, I do 7 calls, or I do 10 calls, or I do 30 calls, right? And just because you miss one day doesn't mean the whole chain is broken. Don't be so hard on yourself that you give up after one bad day.
Yes, that is very important. We're actually going to get to that on our
Perfect.
next segment, talking about
Perfect.
that.
I
So
love it.
you are getting ahead of us. But thank you for foreshadowing what we're going to talk about, because that's really important to give yourself a mulligan.
Yeah.
Give yourself that. And the most important thing about the daily habit is that it's something that you can actually do. It's something that's sustainable. It's kind of like, I'm going to steel man the argument and say like, oh, brushing my teeth.
Mhm.
If I skip I brush my teeth twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day, but twice a day, morning and night.
Okay.
If I miss morning or I miss night for whatever reason, maybe I'm camping, maybe I drank too much, I went straight to bed, maybe I just didn't feel like it. Does that mean that I'm a failure and that when I come back to the dentist a year later that I'm going to have 20 cavities? No. I missed one and I just keep on going. I give myself mulligans, and that's okay. You just need to be able to build it into yourself that we just move forward and we keep on working. We get a little bit better every single day. And if you mess up, you mess up. you move forward. It's not going to derail you so much that your goal is no longer doable. But I think so many people get so infatuated with the daily habit that once they fail once, they quit. And it's like, well, I messed it up. And I know this from people that from diet culture, from workout culture. I have to go to the gym 5 days a week. And the moment I miss it, one of those 5 or 7 days, I'm done. I'm never going back to the gym. I'm on this strict diet. If I don't eat any candies, the moment I have my first chip, it's like, well, I've already broken the diet. So I might as well eat the rest of the chips and the whole pantry. And
Yeah.
I'll probably go to In-N-Out after this too, just to figure it out. And like, really, we'll really just throw it under the bus.
Yeah. It kind of cracks me up what you said there, because it reminded me of, do you remember way back in the day, Cocaine Kenny? You remember him?
I do remember Cocaine Kenny.
That was one of our mailbags, one of our viewer mailbags. Such an interesting one. I highly recommend. I don't even know where you could find it. I don't think we named it Cocaine Kenny, but that might be the only exception where it's like, wow, damn, I've had a little bit of cocaine. Wow, why does it just go off the rails now? Right? It's as simple as that. Right? Just because you go off a little bit doesn't mean you're completely off the rails. You got to get back on track and keep moving forward. Don't do drugs, but
don't do cocaine, kids.
don't do cocaine. It's a bad idea. It was always a bad idea. Please, I hate to interrupt. Please continue on. Please continue on, Chris.
Oh, I forgot. I totally forgot about Cocaine Kenny. Okay, so strategies for sticking to our resolutions. Number one was build habits, not just goals. So build the daily habit, not just the end goal. Because the daily habit, the little bit of work every day, that 1% better is what gets you to be a better person. Number two, and this is something that I use all the time, is an accountability partner. Sharing your goal with someone to keep you committed, and ideally someone who is committed to the same goal as you, is huge. And not just sharing the goal, but doing check-ins with them throughout the year to see how things are going. Because like Dominic said earlier in the podcast, it's pretty easy to fail yourself. Unfortunately, we're willing to fail ourselves first and foremost pretty quickly. I would argue that the worst person you ever want to fail is yourself, but I get that why we do it. But it gets a lot harder when we make a public declaration to somebody else, because our brain, due to the consistency principle, wants to remain consistent. And it's a survival mechanism that we have ingrained in us over millennia. That the person that was wishy-washy, that said, hey, I'm gonna go hunt with the guys and I'll help out with this stuff, and then didn't do it, well, eventually that person got cast out of the tribe. The person that was consistent to what they said and what they did, that their actions matched their words, that person stayed in the tribe, that person survived, that person thrived. So when you bring an accountability partner in, when you make a public declaration, one of the best things that I've ever seen is someone saying, hey, I'm going to lose this much weight by the end of the year. And if I don't, I'm going to donate money to an organization that I don't agree with. Like, they made a public declaration. They put money on it. They did everything. I'm not saying go to that extreme, but I'm saying that it's a real damn good strategy.
That is very interesting. I definitely agree. Public declarations are great. I don't know if I'd go that far with that one, but hey, however far you need to go there. Whatever it takes to get to your goals.
I guess it would depend on your why, right? If it's something is like, I need to lose 50 pounds, or my doctor says I'm going to die, yeah, I'm going to do anything that I have to. Like, this is death. Death puts everything into perspective. So
it really does.
Number 3, I want you to celebrate your progress. Again, we're talking about strategies to stick to your resolution. And I think it's just so important that we talk about the importance of recognizing milestones, not just the end goal. If my goal is to save $23,000, $500 in my 401k next year and max it out, if I don't hit that till December and I feel like I'm a failure all the way to December, I'm going to quit back in February. But if I said, hey, by February, my goal is $23,000 or $24,000, I can't remember what 2025 is right now. That means that by the end of January, I want to save $2,000. By the end of February, $4,000. And if you come up short a little bit, okay, now I know, hey, by the end of January, I only was able to save that $1,000. So my goal for February is let's try to save $2,500, additional $2,500, and then the next month another additional $2,500. We'll try to catch up to the best of our ability. It's when we feel like we're failing and we can't catch up that we give up. And it's our brain's mechanism of protecting us from ourselves. Saying, oh, it's okay, boo-boo. You never actually wanted that goal. You're fine. You're fine. Just give up. Give up. Just be fine. You don't have to be happy. You don't have to thrive. My only goal for you as your brain is for you to survive. And you don't have to be happy to survive. You don't
Mm.
have to reach enlightenment. You don't have to reach the next tier of who you can be and who you should become to survive.
I think oftentimes we burn out because it's a lack of progress, but also it's a lack of milestones as well. Because, like you said, if your goal is 100,000, 20,000, if let's say your goal is 10,000 and you're a failure all the way up until 9,999, and then once you cross 10,000, you're a winner. Well, all that time you were a failure, and you programmed your mind to think you were a failure. And calling yourself a failure and feeling like a failure isn't going to get you to become a winner. I believe that you have to have a winner's mindset before you can become a winner. Nobody becomes successful or a winner on accident. And I love that. I think celebrating progress along the way, recognizing those milestones and not just the end game, right? It's really enjoying the journey of it is way more important than the destination. Way more.
And that's why it's so important that when we set the goals, that it's measurable. Because
Mhm.
if it's not measurable, if we can't see the progress, if we can't actually look and be like, hey, my goal is to, I don't know, for you, my goal is to make 20 calls a week. If that's the goal, like my goal is to make 20 calls a week. And if you don't have that goal, if your goal was just to, I'm going to make a bunch of calls, then
Yeah.
you don't know if you're sticking to it or not. It's not measurable in any way, shape, or form. You don't know if you're making progress. You're only now focusing on the outcome. I want to close 3 deals this year. And until I close 3 deals, I'm a failure. And I'm not going to break it down into what's going to get me to those 3 goals. I don't have any of that. So I'm a failure until I hit those 3 things. But we know that in order for me to hit those 3, I need to make 5 calls a day. It's 20 calls a week, whatever it is for you. I don't know.
Mhm. Mhm.
You need to figure that out for yourself so you can see, like, hey, maybe I haven't hit those 3 right now, but I believe in my heart of hearts that if I reach out to 5 people a day, due to the law of large numbers, I will eventually find those 3 people. We
Absolutely.
can take it to another level at a different time of how to be more efficient than that.
Yeah.
But that's not what this podcast is about.
No, not at all. Not at all.
And let's move on to step number 4 for strategies to sticking with the resolution. And this was a little controversial, but I think it's really important. We need to be willing to adjust the goal when necessary because sometimes life happens. And rather than calling yourself a failure because life happened and you weren't able to meet your goal that you set for yourself, we need to be able to reframe our setbacks as part of the process of setting goals, of trying to become a better person. Maybe my goal was to save $20,000 this year, but I got the economy tanked and I lost my job.
Mhm.
My mom got sick and I had to leave work. Grandma died and I needed time for bereavement. You need to be able to adjust the goal as life happens. And sometimes pivoting without guilt, if your resolution no longer serves you, is better than calling yourself a failure. I would say that pivoting without guilt is always better than calling yourself a failure. There is no reason for you to ever call yourself a failure because you can try and try again, but you are not a failure until you stop trying.
And that's a sad place to be because sometimes a lot of us are in that spot where we had to pivot and maybe the goal we once set is no longer who we are anymore. And you feel like a failure and you are quitting because it isn't who you are anymore. And that's tough to wrestle with. It's very tough to wrestle with. But I agree, you need to adjust when necessary. Because life happens and adapt and overcome.
I was trying to think of the old Jocko quote, and I know we've been talking Jocko a lot this podcast, and I think it has to do with the subject matter. But one thing that I take from him is good. Whatever the situation is, good. Hey, we just lost the biggest client. Good. Now we get to see how we continue to grow the business without being so stuck in one way. Hey, you have cancer. Good. Now I get to focus on my family and stop thinking about in the future and be present. Are these things good? No, things are both bad things objectively. But it's the way that you frame it. Have I ever told you about the story of the farmer and the horse?
Yes, but I would love to hear it again.
So this is an old Buddhist parable. that I've always liked. But there was a farmer who was out on his farm, and a wild horse ran onto his property and actually ended up, and then the guy was actually able to wrangle him and bring him in. And the neighbor came up to him and said, "Wow, you're able to get a horse. You're really lucky." And, or that's really good for you. And the farmer went, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" And then later, the farmer's son was out there trying to tame the new horse. And he's on its back and he's trying to break it. And eventually he gets cast off of the horse and falls down and breaks his arm and breaks his leg. The neighbor comes back and goes, "Wow, what bad luck for you to have your son injured when you need him as a farmhand." And the farmer says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Eventually, a war breaks out, and soldiers come to cast all young men into the army. And they come to the farmer and they see his son with his broken arm and his maimed leg and say, "You can't be a part of the army or the regiment." So he gets to stay home. And the farmer comes and says, or the a neighbor comes and says, "Wow, look how lucky you are. Your son got to stay with you." Farmer says again, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Eventually, the horse runs away and they lose that horse. They lose their lives. They lose the ability to continue to live with this horse. And now the neighbor comes to the farmer and says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" Because he realizes that if you focus on the negative, yes, it's going to be negative. But if you suspend your judgment and you just be with what is rather than what you think things should be, you don't know what the future holds. And that future could very much be that the thing that happened was necessary to allow you to get to the next place.
So the moral of the story is focus on the good, focus on the positive, but also you won't know the good or the bad until you look back on your deathbed in the final hours.
Yeah, I mean, from a deeper perspective, it's just to not have judgment on things, that things are what they are. And the problem isn't the problem. The problem is the way you're relating to the problem.
Yep.
By you saying it's good or you saying it's bad, you're making that so.
Mhm.
But we don't know. No one actually knows. So if you're getting value at this point, which I hope you are, I would like you to please leave up to a 5-star review and subscribe to the podcast. We can actually see our metrics, and I can see that a lot of people are listening and downloading the podcast, but we're not getting the subscribers that would make up for how many people are listening. So please do so. And it's not just for us. It's not for me to stroke my ego. It's for us to be able to get better guests on with you, for our listeners. And if you do listen on YouTube, please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. We're always here for you. Now, we have 2 more segments, but what I'm going to do since we are going over time is I want to go ahead and go to our last segment, segment 3, common pitfalls for sticking to your resolutions, because I think this is really important.
Okay.
And then on Friday feedback, rather than doing a full review of what we typically do, I want to talk about a book that I'm currently reading, and I'm actually almost done with, called Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus.
Mhm.
And the reason I want to talk about this is reading this book while preparing for this podcast, I saw so many commonalities that I really want to talk about it because I think it's going to be really important. But let's move on to segment number 3, common pitfalls for sticking to our resolutions. I think if we don't talk about this, even if we set the goals, even if we have some strategies to sticking with it,
Mhm.
if we don't talk about, hey, these are things you're going to encounter on the road to your greatness, these are the things that I have come across, that Dominic has come across, that everyone has come across, there are people in this world that are going to hit that first wall and be like, "Oh, this isn't for me. I must have set the wrong goal. I must not have the right strategy." But when you realize that as you go through life, as you go through this jungle, you will encounter snakes, you will encounter branches, you will encounter twisted ankles. That's part of the journey. So, number 1 for our common pitfalls for sticking to our resolutions is starting too big too fast.
Mhm.
While setting overly ambitious goals is great, it can often lead to burnout. So both things are true simultaneously in that we want to set a big goal. We want it to be just outside of what we think is possible. And by doing that, you can lead to burnout. And the solution to this, from my estimation, is to break that big goal down into smaller, actionable parts. Just like we talked about in the strategies. It's not the goal, it's the daily habits that get us to the goal.
Mhm. I am excited for Fridays then. I'm very excited for Friday's episode to learn more about that book because that right there was speaking to me big, very big way. I would love to start doing more book reviews maybe on Friday. That would be a lot of fun. I like that.
That's a lot more reading for me, but
Yeah.
that's totally fine.
We'll have to
we can
swap out
definitely do that.
your daily podcast for daily books, but no, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I hope, yeah, guys, make sure to stick around for Friday's episode because that's going to be an absolutely entertaining and informational episode as well. And we can't forget about the viewer mailbag on Friday as well because that's very entertaining. But Chris, you have some.
And we're not done yet because we still
No.
have a few other common pitfalls that I want to make sure that we get through today. But yeah, on Friday, that this book that I've been reading has been huge, a very big book for me.
Yeah.
So number one, starting too big, too fast. And we know that, right? We've talked about that earlier. Hey, I want to lose 30 pounds this year. So what I'm going to do for the next 30 days, I'm not going to eat. And there it is. And we went too big, too fast. We set up a thing that was not sustainable. The daily habits were not in line with what we can do. Oftentimes, it's not the strongest person that wins, it's the person that can endure. The way that the Grand Canyon was carved was not from some giant stream coming through one time. It was from a little river that flowed for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. That's how you can do that. So be like water in that instance. Be formless. Be ready to continue to work through it because you never know which punch of hitting that boulder is going to be the one that breaks it. It wasn't the last one. It was all hundreds of thousands before it. All of it culminated into that one thing. So number two for common pitfalls for sticking to your resolutions is a lack of clarity or focus. And this is the reason that we started with our SMART goals, that we moved on to the strategies, because if you have a vague goal, I want to become better, I want more, I want it to be good, it's going to be really hard to know if you're on track. And it's going to be impossible to know if you're making progress. So that's why we want to revisit. Is it specific? Is it measurable? Those two things from SMART is what's going to help with the solution of this lack of clarity and focus.
It really all goes back to our SMART goals and why they're so important.
It almost seems as if when I made the show notes that I put some cognition into it.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, you sure this wasn't off the dome? This was a formulated thought?
I sometimes have a thought once in a while.
Yeah, every once in a while.
Number three for common pitfalls.
Yeah.
And this one's a big one. This is one that I struggle with a lot. Perfectionism and all or nothing thinking. If I miss one workout, I might as well just quit. If I eat that bag of chips, well, the diet's effed anyway, so I might as well just eat the rest of it. One thing that I've tried to keep in my brain when I start to feel those feelings: don't let perfect be the enemy of good. Don't let your idea of perfection be the enemy of good enough. Because we are not perfect beings. No one is. But can you be good enough? Can you be enough? You are enough. Keep on working that. Embrace progress over perfection. Every small step counts. Every stutter step, every step back is just one step back. You're not restarting from ground zero every time. If you've lost 20 pounds and then you go off on a bender for a weekend and you gain 5 back, you're still down 15 pounds. You have to remember that. You have to track it. You have to see it because you will fail. And that does not make you a failure. It makes you human.
And being human is okay.
Being human is all there is. Number 4, on common pitfalls for sticking to our resolutions. Failure to plan for challenges. So many of us think, oh, it's going to be easy. I mean, I'm going to be able to go to the gym every day. I'll be able to save all this money. Nothing's going to come wrong. I have control of all the variables in my head. But then there's some construction on the road. My car breaks down. I lose my job. My landlord raises my rent. If you overlook obstacles that may constrain us, it may limit our resources, that's when people will often quit. Oh, I couldn't have foreseen that. Well, I might as well just quit and move on to the next thing. So the solution for us is to anticipate challenges and create contingency plans for when those things come up. Now, obviously, I'm not telling you to sit here and write down all infinite number of things that can't happen. We can't do that. We don't know what the future holds. But look and try to think for the big things. What are some big things that come up when you're trying to go to the gym every day? My kids get in the way. Maybe my clothes aren't laid out. Maybe my car doesn't have gas in it. What can I do today to make sure that tomorrow that doesn't happen? And if it does happen, remember that it's okay. And now I just learned something that I didn't foresee happening that I can make a solution for next time so it won't derail me on the next go round. I still stick to my goal.
Do you think that that could be a place of madness, though, of every day constantly trying to have the perfect day in your mind and try and work around it to predict? Because I know you know me, right? And you've previously stated that the mind is a predicting machine and it optimizes for efficiency. And I agree, contingency plans so important. I mean, in a way, our whole podcast is the theme of it is based on contingency plans, right? Teaching people about financial independence, financial freedom, you know. But at what point is it too much? At what point are there too many contingency plans and you become lost in the void of, well, what if this happens? If this happens, this happens. If this happens, in this happens. In analysis paralysis. At what point do you stop and say, you know what, whatever happens, happens. We're going forward anyways.
That's a wonderful question. I have a very simple answer for it, but I want
Mhm.
you to know that this is something I struggle with a lot,
Okay.
especially as an entrepreneur who has multiple businesses. I struggle with this a lot. There are times where I can't sleep at nights where I struggle with it. And what I come back to is asking myself the question, is this serving me? When I'm thinking, hey, I have a flight that I have to catch tomorrow, and I think of some contingency plans. Okay, so what if tomorrow my car doesn't start? All right, well, if that doesn't happen, then I'll get in my wife's car. I can call an Uber. But what if I get there and the baggage isn't working? What if this happens? What if this happens? For a couple of contingencies, the things that can happen, it's good to think it through. But if you're sitting there berating yourself over the 20 million other things that could happen, you need to ask yourself the question, is this thought pattern serving me? And all it is it's your anxiety. And I like to think of that movie Inside Out.
Mhm.
It's anxiety. Anxiety is at the control board, and he or she is freaking out, thinking of all the things to protect you from you, to protect you from failing. And you can see that it's there, and say and allow your the back of your brain, your hind brain, that anxiety part that's trying to keep you alive, that emotion, and say, hey, I see you. I know what you're trying to do. I know you're trying to protect me. And I feel that we have enough laid out right now. Let me take over control. Let somebody else take over control for a little bit. Because what we're doing right now, spiraling, is not serving the person I want to become. And I know it's easy for me to say, and I struggle with this every day. And that's part of becoming a whole person, is this struggle.
100%. Also, thinking about doing something is not the same as doing something. And that's, for me, that's something that I struggle with a lot. Is getting it out of the planning phase, launching it out of the planning phase. And once you're finally out of the planning phase, you're in the action phase, right? Trying to make it more efficient and more efficient and more efficient. And it's tough.
May I
Go for it, please.
may I bring up a reason why people normally do that?
Yeah.
A lot of people will go through and they'll have the great plan. It's a perfect plan. And they'll go around, they'll tell everybody, hey, I have this plan, I'm going to do this stuff.
Mhm.
And there's always reasons to delay the launch. And I think when you really get down into the nitty gritty, the real psyche behind it, it's fear. Fear that my plan isn't enough, that I'm going to fail. And if I fail, what does that mean about me? It means that I'm a failure. And I can't be a failure. I have to continue to go on. I need to live. I need to work. I need to do all these things. I need to be there for my family. I can't be a failure. So if I keep the idea in my brain, it's safe there. It's safe in my brain. The world hasn't been able to affect it. I don't know if it's going to fail. I know in my brain it's going to work. I know that for sure, but I don't really know, and I'm afraid to really know that. It's terrifying to think that all the work, all the effort, all of what I put into it, all of me is not enough. And I can guarantee you that if you try to do anything, it will not be enough. But you are enough. And you will get through it. You have to reiterate whatever you think is going to work, it's not going to work. That's just the physics of business, the physics of progress. You control all the variables in your head as to what the business plan is, as to how it's going to be perceived by the market, as to how my genius will be known. But in reality, you don't control any of the variables. You do your best and you reiterate over and over and over again until you finally figure it out, until you finally crack the code. And then the code changes. It's like a Rubik's Cube that fights back.
I felt that one. Felt that one deep. And I think more people will feel that as well.
Well, I hope they do, because we are getting, as we move through the podcast, we're getting deeper and deeper into psychology, philosophy, finance, and I'm trying to show the listener that all of these things are interconnected.
Mhm.
But obviously I didn't want to get to here until our listener has heard more things.
Yeah.
And because if we go here too fast, one thing as you start to study physics, philosophy, psychology, all these things, the crazier and crazier you sound. It's true. I realize I sound like a crazy person if you don't know me. If you haven't heard enough, it sounds like I'm talking woo-woo stuff.
Or
And
if
in
you're
some
not,
ways, maybe I am.
yeah. Or if you're not enlightened on that level, someone who's very closed off and who simply is who they are, and they're not trying to become anything more. It's like you're speaking a foreign language.
It's a direct threat to them. It's a direct threat to their existence. What I'm saying can be scary to people, to say that the way you're living is wrong. Therefore, you are wrong. That's not what I'm saying at all, but I can understand that perception. So, number 5, we only have 1 or 2 more, and then we're going to finish this off on 5 Friday feedback with the book, Do Hard Things. Number 5 is really big for common pitfalls for sticking to our resolution, and that's losing motivation over time. I think it's very common that people have so much excitement going into January for whatever their goal is. And by February, that excitement has faded. And going back to our SMART goals, this is where we have to revisit the relevant, revisit the why. We have to remind ourselves why we set this goal for ourselves. We didn't set our goal to save more money for retirement because we want to live on a beach all day. We set it because we wanted to be free, because we wanted to spend time with our loved ones. Money isn't the goal. Having a six-pack isn't the goal. The goal is health. The goal is wealth. The goal is relationships. The goal is time. The goal is freedom. And if we don't remind ourselves of that, and we get stuck in the mire, in the muck of, I just do this because I'm doing this. I don't know why I'm doing this. I just go to work because I go to work. And we don't go to work to make money to give ourselves freedom. We forget the reason that we started. We forgot the why. This is the system that we're in. The system is meant to keep you stuck. And I'm trying to red pill you to show you that you don't have to be stuck.
I think to go to a job that you don't love without a strong why behind it is death. To me. To me, it is death. To me, that is a life not worth living. But if you keep your why front and center in a laminate card with your family surrounded by it, and you have that light at the end of the tunnel, you don't need motivation, because discipline laughs in the face of motivation. Stronger why.
Discipline laughs in the face of.
Came up with it. But we talk about it all the time on the podcast. A strong why, an unbreakable why, creates an easy how. It's like that story I said at the beginning of the podcast with the unhealthy man and the doctor walking in, asking him, "You want another man to walk your daughter down the aisle?" Right? I said, "Of course not. I'm her dad. I'm her father. I raised her. I want to be the one walking down her aisle. You better change your ways. Better start eating healthy." And that's the power of a strong why.
You know, it reminds me of the book A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. And this is a book that if anyone asks, like, what's your number one book that you tell everyone to read? It's definitely this book.
Gotcha.
And, getting to read from a Holocaust survivor, someone that survived 6 different what are they called? Camps, 6 different camps. He went through Auschwitz.
Mhm.
And, his whole thing is that a man with a strong enough why can endure anyhow.
Mhm.
This is a man who went through 6 Nazi death camps
Concentration
and
camps.
made it
Yeah.
out, concentration camps, and made it out because of his goal to see his wife. Through the hardest thing that I can imagine a person can go through. I couldn't imagine a worse situation. And you can look at your situation, listener, and say, well, I'm in a worse situation because of this or that or that. You're not. Objectively, you're not. And other people can make it through. But the goal here is not to put your pain against somebody else's pain to say whose pain is worse. The worst thing someone's ever been through is the worst thing someone's ever been through. Your brain only can perceive your pain. So focus on that and know that you're going to make it through it. If you have a strong enough why, if your smart goal, your relevant is strong enough, you have to remind yourself of that every single day. Because the goal is important, but the goal is not the goal. The reason for the goal is the goal. Number 6, for common pitfalls for sticking to our resolutions. And this one is very important, and it's only getting worse in this day and age. External distractions, allowing outside influence, outside influencers, people to derail your progress. And that might be social media, that might be peer pressure, that might be family, that might be friends. Maybe you make a public declaration online of, hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to save this much money this year. I'm going to lose this pounds. And you go to the comment section. People are like, that's stupid. You're stupid. Why would you do that? Maybe your friends go like, that's dumb. We're not those people. Maybe your family says, why are you trying to save money? Rich people are bad. Why people who have money are bad people. And all of these things will normally derail a person. And unfortunately, it's getting worse and worse, I think, in this day and age, because hurt people hurt people. And these people are, my thought is that they're jealous of you. They're jealous that you're the one who's trying to do what they want to do. And from another level, they're thinking that what they're doing is wrong. And by you doing something different, you are throwing it in their face that they are wrong. And that's not what you're trying to do. You're trying to focus on your priorities. You're trying to focus on your principles, your why. And in order to do that, we need to set priorities and we need to set our boundaries of people. And sometimes you need to not let that stuff in. I know it's easy to say, don't let other people's opinions come in. It's hard as hell. If you need to post and ghost, if you need to distance yourself from families, if you just need to set a boundary and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care what you guys think about it. I don't want to hear about it.
Mhm.
For me, I know what I do. If I'm starting a new business project, if I'm trying to do something, I don't tell anybody about it until I'm about 80% of the way through it. About 80% of the way through doing it.
Mhm.
Because I know how quickly someone's opinion can derail me from doing what I think is best. So now I have to keep a lot of things secret, and I'll only tell people who I know are going to build me up. And then eventually, when I'm ready for them to tear me down, I will ask them to tear me down so that I can make it better.
Yeah.
But it's hard. It's hard every step of.
You said something there that is so true. And it's something that if I had a literal Spartan shield, right, up when someone might throw negativity towards my way or judgment that I didn't ask for or just pure hatred, right? That shield is exactly what Chris said. Only hurt people hurt people. People that are hurt inside and haven't healed themselves hurt other people. And once you keep that in the front of your mind as they lobby their attacks, their arrows turn to dust, really. And in a way, in a weird way, the person and the words that you feared and that you got so anxious over and you got so mad over that it stayed in your mind for so long, they lose their power because only hurt people hurt people. And you begin to feel sympathetic for them and sad for them. In a weird way, you feel sorry for them because it must really suck being and staying with that emotion, staying in that past, not healing. I know that if I had a cut on my hand, big old cut, 4-inch cut right on my hand, and it never healed, best believe I'd be pretty mad, wouldn't you? Now I can only imagine an emotional scar inside that was never recovered. You can see how that would be pretty detrimental to your daily life and how that affects others. So, like Chris said, only hurt people, and use that as your shield coming across negativity. I also want to say one other thing. I don't know if you guys find that when you're in the shower, you have your best thoughts, your most prolific thoughts, your most engaging thoughts. You look forward to the shower because you feel like you can just be alone. And I want to say that you don't just have to be alone in the shower. Right? I know me, I love my shower, right? I put my phone away. It's just my thoughts. And it's so funny to me because at any point of the day, I can also put my phone away and just shut it off. Now, the anxious side of me says, wow, man, well, what if my mom calls me? Right? If my dad calls me, what if there was a car accident? It has a funny way of working itself out. There is a 1 in a billion chance, maybe even higher, that Chris and I ever met. And we did. Don't be afraid of the what if. Get rid of distractions and armor your mind. Those are my final thoughts.
Dominic,
So for that.
I would like to revisit both of these subjects on Five Friday feedback. I would like to start with that. I've been actually doing a lot of meditation on this, on exactly what we just talked about hurt people, hurting people, and what to do about that. So I'd like to start there, and then we'll move on to the second part that you made, about separating from your phone, separating from it, and just being aware of the nothingness and being fully present and being able to hear the inner wisdom, as it were. And I know it sounds woo woo, and I get that. I try not to, but that's just who I am. So let's go ahead and get our action step for the week, and then please come back for Five Friday feedback because I already feel it's going to be a huge one. Our action step for the week is to set your own SMART goal for 2025. And I want you to leave it in a review for the five guys. You don't have to attach your name. No one knows what your username is. Put what your goal is for 2025. Leave it with a review for us. And let's make 2025 the best year yet. Let's do that together by setting our SMART goals that are specific, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're relevant, and they're time bound. We have to remember that we have strategies that we gave you that are going to help you stick to those resolutions. And we gave you some common pitfalls to watch out for. Please come back for Five Friday feedback. We're going to be talking about the book Do Hard Things by Steve Magnus. And we're going to be revisiting some of the few key points that we talked about today. And I think going really deep into philosophy, psychology, to try to unpack those things a little bit more. And I know we're kind of moving away from the finance part, but I think if we fix this, you'll realize how interconnected all of these things are and how fixing one part of you will fix all parts of you. Because getting better anywhere or in anything is getting better in everything. And with that, thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, leave a review, and most importantly, please be safe for New Year's. Get home safe. Don't drink and drive. Have a DD. It's not cool to drink and drive no matter what people tell you. Just please have a DD. Have fun. Be safe. We're the Five Guys. Thank you so much. Later.
See you next year. Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the hosts and guests, not the podcast sponsor.
It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.